Hey, what's up? It's Genesis and hope you're doing well. I know it's been a long time since I did a video with VCV rack, but it's just because I'm busy with work. And speaking of which, today's shift was really bad. So what better way to relax than using VCV rack at midnight? In this video, I'm going to be breaking down my default patch for VCV rack, and you'll be able to get this template on my Patreon. Link will be in the description below. And without further ado, let's begin. We're going to start off at the top left. First things first, we have a notepad. This notepad allows me to log all of the details of the patch, ranging from name and date to the keybinds that I'm going to use in whatever patch I make. I can also add other keybinds later, and I'll show you how I do that later on in this video. I can also include some patch notes, so things that inspired me to make the patch, or key concepts about this patch, and other stuff like that. We then have these three very important modules to the right of it, and these modules change the whole workflow of VCV rack from the default. So this is the cable color key by Inkling, and you can make up to 6 different colors that you can toggle between. Right now I have white on C, A on red, and T for black. If you look at the notes section to the left, the keybinds are also shown here, and I currently have C or white to signify CV and modulation signals. I've got red to signify audio signals, and T to signify gates and triggers. These two modules right here by Stollmelder are being used to change the way the mouse works and the way the menu looks as well. I honestly can't remember which is which, but what I do know is that with these two modules, you can see that there's a value on the bottom of the screen whenever I move a parameter. The window also shows the module that I'm tweaking and the author of the module. This is what the menu looks like with Air as well, or at least with one of the modules. It changes it to I think the alpha version, or one of the very first few versions of VCV rack's menus, because I prefer this look. If I delete these two, you can see the massive difference here. There's no value change window on the bottom. It's only on the right or the bottom right of where your cursor is, and also the menu looks like this. This is the default menu as of VCV rack 2.6.4. So if we bring back the modules, you can see the difference here again. There we go. Over here we have the clock section. I have Metro being the main clock here by CF. Think of it as like the project file BPM. Of course we can set that here. It's got an on and off switch, which I have routed to one of my keybinds, which is space, to make it like a regular DAW on and off, stop and play. To the right of it, it's going to a mono mixer. This is pretty much just to change the levels of the Metro clock. This way, all the trigger signals from Metro are within a decent enough volume to be detected by this module right here, which is R-Gate by Borg Audio. And this is a clock multiplier / divider, which means that it can take whatever clock signal in, and it can divide the clock signal by however many divisions, like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., all the way up to 64, making the clock signal slower, or multiply the clock signal by, again, the same range, and I'm using it to create 16th notes. It then goes through a clock divider by count modular, and this is so I can have different subdivisions of the main BPM, like I can have 1/8 notes, quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, 2 bars, 4 bars, etc. To continue on the left side of the template, we've got more utility stuff here. This is for any external inputs that I have, like my MIDI controller here. I've got MIDI map and MIDI CV if I want to use my MIDI controller knobs to control certain parameters, or even have the actual keys on my MIDI keyboard to trigger something. I then have a stroke module by Stollmelder, which is how I'm able to get certain keystrokes to trigger things. As you can see here, this is a spare one. I have the main one right here, which I'll go into detail in a few seconds. But this spare one is for any additional keybinds that I might use to trigger, let's say, a change in a pattern, or a change in LFO rate, or etc. I then have this 8-vert by VCV, and pretty much I'm using this as a way to clamp down on certain ranges. Like for example, I have a sequence generator and the range of that module can go from minus 12 volts to plus 12 volts. In terms of volt per octave or note range, that is massive, and I can use this to clamp down on the note range from that sequence. I can also use it to clamp down on certain LFO ranges as well, or even invert them as well. And each output is normaled to the next one, so that makes it really easy to get different variations of modulation from one input. All the way to the right here is the main mixer section, which contributes to all of the space right here. So this middle section is based off of this mixer and expander called the Mixmaster Junior and Auxpander by MindMeld. The mixer itself is over here. This has 8 tracks. On each track, you can see it's got a left input or mono input, a right / stereo, a level CV input, a panning CV input, panning knob, volume slider, and mutes and solos. You can also name each track. Let's say kick, snare, hat. I spelled hat wrong, but you get the idea. And you can also assign each track to a group, which I admittedly don't really use. This Auxpander is an expander module to the Mixmaster, and pretty much it adds, sends, and returns to the already existing mixer, which is why there's a lot of spaghetti right here in terms of cables. But the way I've got it routed is out of the 4 sends, 3 are currently being used. I have one for a tape echo kind of effect, which is right here. That's in red, all these red knobs here. Orange going to a plate reverb, which is right here. And blue going to Galaxy, which is a different, more smeary, lush reverb. And right now purple is free. I might add something there. I don't know what yet though. And this allows me to send some signals through these effects, have it mix back in to the mixer so I can have independent control of the dry signal and the wet signal, which is pretty cool, especially for stuff like using some of these MIDI map controls to do some reverb swells, or have a snare, have a reverb hit every once in a while, stuff like that. The stroke that I mentioned earlier, which has all of these controls here, I am using alongside these merge modules to create polyphonic signals, which go into this input here of the mixer. And you can use polyphonic signals on this mixer to control many different things. In my case, I'm using it to control mutes or solos of tracks 1 to 8, as well as muting or soloing the master. So if I press 1 on my computer keyboard, I can mute track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. And M to mute the whole master, just in case if things go too crazy. And as mentioned before, the space is being used to control the play and pause of the clock. Now onto the actual center return effects. The echo, as mentioned earlier, in red, goes to Tap Dancer by Flag, and this is a multi-tap delay, which can also sound a bit like tape delay because it's got some modulation and a little bit of drive and filtering, which is pretty cool. I'm also using a tempo input coming from the clock section to have a tempo synced delay. You can get some pretty gnarly feedback stuff going on here to get some almost tape feedback scream kind of sound, which is really, really nice. I really recommend this module. For a simple plate reverb, I've got Plate Reverb by Nishti. I have no idea how to pronounce the name, I'm sorry. But this is a really nice plate sounding reverb. I mean, there's nothing much else I can say. We have Galaxy by Cosine Kitty. This is part of their Sapphire collection, and it is one of the best reverbs I've heard in a long while, especially in VCV rack. It's really nice and lush, you can make it go for a really, really long time, and it blends really well. I don't really hear much artifacts or aliasing or whatever you want to call it. I don't hear any grittiness coming from this reverb, which is pretty nice. So all of the outputs from the Mixmaster then goes straight to a clipper module, Clipper by Bulk Audio, just as a way to have like a safety net, but also to have some nice crunch if I want to. And of course this goes to the output audio. On the very right here, we just have some visual goodness. I don't actually use this for any metering or whatever. The top one here is Analyzer XL by Bulk Audio. So this is a typical frequency analyzer. And over here we have an XY oscilloscope. This one is by Wicked. It's called Full Scope. And the other decorative stuff, I guess we can mention, these labeled blanks. They're called Scribble Strip by Interrobang. And these little dividers here, these light dividers, they are from Count Modular as well. And these are light strips. This blank right here is by VCV themselves, and it's, you know, just a good old blank. And then I have all the space here at the bottom to fit as many modules to do whatever things I want. That's pretty much it. And the whole reason why I have these dividers here as well is because as a way to restrict myself from using way too many modules, that little bit of restriction can open up some creative ways to synthesize certain sounds. So having this kind of restriction is pretty good for me. If I want to have a bit of a bigger, I guess, canvas, I can just simply move this around, get another divider, and with these VCV rack blanks, I can just fill in that space. No biggie. But yeah, that is pretty much it. Thank you to all my free Patreon members for showing your support. Much love to my tier 1 patrons on the screen right now for supporting the channel directly. And I'd also like to shout out, and sincere apologies if I butcher your name, I write, Delta Rose, LifeX Earth, Giamarqua, Any10, Plus5, and Flavian Dobra for being my highest tier patrons. You're absolute legends. And that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video around. All my links in the description below. This includes my Discord, Patreon, merch, and more. Once again, thanks a lot for watching, and stay creative. See you in a bit.